I 100% agree. I feel like once we kind of took away the partying for a bit, a lot of people who kind of didn't really, I guess, look into much of the community outside of that aspect actually sat down and really learned. I mean, there was a lot of digital and streaming platforms that were kind of using that moment to like both fundraise and also teach the public about why Pride exists and why it is here. And it was a very important moment, and it was very cool in 2020.
For sure, about like the learning element. I feel like because of the internet and just like where we are today with LGBT rights, a lot of the history kind of gets lost. Like we know these buzzwords like Marsha P. Johnson, but like do you know what star was? Like, are you well read with people that are, LGBT that weren't born in the 90s or the 2000s or don't have an internet platform or maybe aren't here anymore? Like, do you know Leslie Feinberg? Do you know Susan Stryker? Do you know Audre Lorde? Like, you know, being an active member of the LGBT community, it's like there's a lot that you need to reflect on because history repeats itself. And so many people have done so much work that like it could just get lost because now we have, people like us on the internet that are like, oh, like Pride. And it's like there's so much history there that we're not privy to in schools. And if we don't do the work ourselves and spread that to other kids, it's just going to get lost.
I completely agree. And I love how the education element has really shone through last year and also this year. But I also like the fact that I know corporate pride is still like a really contentious issue, but big platforms are still lending themselves to allow for pride parties online. I think there's so many people who, for reasons of safety, perhaps they're just not comfortable with being out yet. Like they don't feel like they can go to physical pride. And so it's still so important to have these online platforms where people can express themselves, perhaps in a more anonymous way, and still be part of that party. And I just feel like online prides these past few years has just meant that we've been able to take that message not just to the people who are avid pride goers who are in our beautiful safe happy bubble, but also further out to the people who perhaps not in our happy bubble but just need that little bit of enlightening or awareness to sort of get them in there. Also means that we just got to party 3 times as hard next year, so I'm excited for that.
So that is an amazing segue again into how do you envision Pride in 2022? Because you all seem to have said like the education of this online version and the accessibility of this online version has like really been inspirational and meaningful to so many people. So how would you envision what Pride looks like in 2022 when, fingers crossed, touch wood, more of us are able to go out and live a post-pandemic life?
Well, I think people are gonna, it's gonna be bigger than ever because since we were really forced into our homes and our interpersonal relationships, and you're not able to, to go out and do everything that we're used to in our routine. I feel like so many people have like come to terms with their gender identity, their gender expression, their sexuality from either being alone or being forced into these spaces that, they're not they're just not a part of like all the hubbub of like every single day and like more into with themselves. And it's like a lot of kids are coming out right now, so it's gonna be really cool, I think, next year for them to be able to have that space of like a big proper pride event.
I
Yes,
completely
100%.
agree.
Ooh,
Oh, sorry, Mac, you go. You go.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. I think, yeah, Miles makes a really great point. And I think there's so many people that will have come out and realized in the last year or two and not had their chance to go out and have this like party with a purpose. And I hopefully we see a return to in-person prides that are bigger and better than ever, but also with this kind of um, harnessing the reflection and the learning that we've had over these virtual prides and the education that has increased and kind of moving that forward into the in-person prides as well and keep that going ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna be 100%. I do feel like it's gonna be bigger than ever before. People are gonna be partying like crazy, but I do hope that we still push the activism, especially next year, and especially towards trans rights. Because right now, if you guys have been paying attention, that a lot of that has been gambling through American history. Right now, a lot of these politicians have been pushing these very weird laws, and I think it's time for us to stand back together, especially next year, for that reason.
Absolutely.
I
And
actually don't. I actually don't think that we're going to lose. I mean, I think we certainly made a bit of a paradigm shift over the last year with everything that was involved, and I can't comment on whether it was good or bad. I think the effect of the last year is undeniable, and I don't think we're just going to go back to doing everything exactly the way we were. Of course, people are going to want to party. There's always going to be fun times at the bar for those of us that like to partake and are of age. But I don't think that we're going to ever be in a time where we're like not going to be using the internet. You know, and I think all of these I certainly think we passed that threshold that we can't really return from. Where video conferences and video and things like this, where we're like, these spaces on Twitter, which are new now, they're here to stay. And this is the way that we're going to be, our kids will be communicating. And so I think we just passed that threshold. And I also think that I would like to think that people who were awakened to a sense of community and activism, a larger sense of community and activism, be they corporations who realize their responsibility, just folks from different parts of the community that are now recognizing their privilege or whatever lessons we need to learn in terms of self-interrogation. I'd like to think that we've sort of passed the point of no return with that. I mean, there's always is work to do, but I do think that now it's obvious. Now it's very clear what the journey is. Before it was kind of low key, but now I think with everything that we did last year, it was so undeniable, and we realized that the work that needed to be done had to be done by all of us or many of us. I don't think we're just going to just be able to be like, oh, 2020 and maybe 2020, 21 was just kind of a flash in the pan. Let's go back to 2018. Like nobody's trying to go back to 2018.
So that's our 2022 mission, okay, everyone? We have to channel our inner Hannah Montana, best of both worlds, activism and parties.
You heard it here first. One thing that I always say about digital is that a video might not change the world, but it might change someone's. And I think, to your point, Peppermint, having that ability to make these stories and this representation accessible to people that might not have the opportunity for any number of reasons to join Pride and to experience it, but having that representation is so important. The Trevor Project in 2019 said that just one accepting adult can reduce the risk of suicide by up to 40%, and representation across the media and as influencers like you are can really impact on the way that people perceive themselves and accept themselves. So with representation in mind, the next question is, which person/character in the media has had the greatest personal impact on you accepting and appreciating your own identity? Because representation matters. So who in the media, whether online or in traditional media, has really impacted your identity?
For me, it all started with Miss J. Alexander from America's Next Top Model. That they were the first like showcasing of a queer Black person ever in media I've ever seen, and I was so invested with that person. Also, RuPaul's Drag Race has like the largest, I feel like, largest showcasing of Black queer people, and that to me has always been very inspirational since I was a little teenager.
I feel like I've been summoned with that last. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm so grateful, and so I'm just in awe of all of the amount. I won't say all of the overabundance, but I'm just in awe of the representation that's available now, and so wonderful now, and so inspiring now. And I feel like I'm making up for lost time because I was probably the age that most of you are in the 90s. And so there weren't, to be honest with you, like what I resonate with now isn't what was available to be resonated with in during when I was coming up. And that's probably because of the lack of social media and things like Twitter. and YouTube. And so the people that I had were kind of like the best we had was like whoever was sort of speaking in code, you know. And so it was, you know, maybe like Richard Simmons, Little Richard, and like Prince were like, you know, not that Prince was out as queer, but like Prince was like, you know, clearly a man who was defying gender norms in the very least and sexuality norms. And so that was slightly liberating to me. And then also, you know, strong women who continue to be very inspiring. But those are sort of my icons. And so, you know, people like Grace Jones and Millie Jackson, and you know, women like that. And my mother, you know, I just had to look around me and sort of make do with what I had. I couldn't find another black trans woman you know, if I tried.
I gotta give love to Tyler Oakley. I grew up as an only child in a family that was just so different than me, and so a lot of my time was spent on the internet and on like online social spaces. And Tyler Oakley was just like the gateway gay, and like in my household, and was able to just like, you know, spearhead through all the cis het norms of like the internet. And like I started following Tyler Oakley when he had like 8,000 subscribers. Like I remember like my mom coming into my room when I was 11 and seeing this gay man and was like, you're not allowed to watch this, like, you know what I mean? And like I had never had these convos of like sexuality or anything at that point, and I didn't understand why it was wrong. And it just like kind of like snowballed into me seeing parts of myself in other people on the internet that I didn't see in my family, and I didn't see in my school, and I didn't see in my community. So definitely like the work that Tyler Oakley did in the online social spaces was a really big deal for me.
I love that, Miles, and I don't want to be a party pooper, but I kind of feel like whilst all of these people are absolutely amazing, I don't feel like I've seen myself in them. I thought so hard about this question. There's so much overall representation throughout the ages, but as just like a little brown, chubby Asian girl who happens to be bisexual, there was no one that looked like me growing up. There was no one that looked like me who I could feel like I resonated with. And I really feel, especially when I came out, like it's probably just this past like 18 months maybe that I've seen some names in the spheres that I've now chosen to really deep dive into, that I can be like, oh hey, look at this awesome Asian like representation. I still think we've just got such a long way to go with intersectionality in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in the places where these like normal traditional pockets tend to be. I'm sure YouTube was a thing. I'm sure that the amazing groups like Imam and the IMI were available, but I didn't look there because I didn't know that they existed. I would so love to see a future where we could see like just traditional media represent all of our incredible intersectionalities.
Yeah, I think we're just passing the point where where intersectionality is a thing that people are able to grasp, a concept that people are able to understand and apply to what they do or their lives or their content or their channel or their businesses. You know, I think Shaba, you're 100% right. Like 3, 4, 5 years ago, like it wasn't a thing. And to be honest with you, that when I was, you know, no shade here. I'm gonna go just a little deep, but I know that it's a very, I understand. I can read the room. Where I was before working and doing things on the internet before Drag Race, I was working, performing drag in gay bars and nightclubs. And I worked in downtown Chelsea, which I was one of maybe two black queens in a cast of like 14 queens. And we were performing for primarily male white audiences who are gay. And so I did not see myself really in the community reflected. And then I remember very specifically the magazine was the two of the well the premier gay magazine, which was like a free magazine at the time, that you would get, and it would tell you all of your information about the community, the clubs, and all the listings. they always had go-go boys on the cover, and they had a rule that everyone knew. It was unwritten, but it was a spoken rule that they could only have one person of color a year as their cover boy, and it was a weekly magazine. And so we had to get past that in order to get to a point where we could see ourselves reflected in mainstream or conventional media. And so I think we're just reaching that point now.
Shaba, it's interesting that you said that you didn't see the representation, but I'd say that through social media and YouTube, you've become the representation. So I'm curious how that kind of well, but I'm curious like how you feel about kind of being given the opportunity online to become the representation that potentially you didn't see when you were younger, and I'm sure that applies to the other panelists as well.
Firstly, flattered. Bless you. But no, I have to also shout out, there are some incredible creators, particularly like brown LGBT creators that I found sort of since coming out. I think it's just my journey was like a little bit earlier. Like, just to shout out Lily Singh, because she's like a huge YouTuber, right? And she's been doing incredible things with her platform at the moment that have been very LGBT plus focused. Even in mainstream, like Jamila Jamil is a great personality who's sort of coming out a little bit more and just really showing the importance of this intersectionality. But I just love, I can only speak from my personal journey. It's funny, people think that like influencers are only there to influence. I don't like the term influencer because I don't feel like that's my role. Like, I am just as easily influenced by my incredible community, and I've learned so much through them. It's like a sharing of stories that we do together, the sharing of resources in groups that I found, because incredible viewers have been like, hey, like there's this resource right here that's really helped me, and I've been like, oh, this is so cool, how did I not find that before? Like, that's the beauty of the internet, just turning that vulnerability into a superpower, because you realize that there are people exactly like you out there. You just need to find them.
Amazing. Totally agree. So the next question is the impact of the LGBTQ plus community on wider culture. So what are some examples of things that you have seen go from LGBTQ plus community and culture to mainstream that people might not realize came from the LGBTQ plus community originally? And again, open to anyone that wants to jump in first.
Where do we start?
You tell me, Mac.
I mean, I don't know how to pinpoint what exactly, but there is a lot of, lingo and a lot of just general culture that does come from, the ballroom era. I feel like that kind of general culture has become very mainstream in the last like 10 years. If anyone wants to jump onto that.
Yeah, I think that's really obvious, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Other than general pop culture references, in my experience, like there's certainly things that the queers latch onto that are just out there for everyone. The occasional Devil Wears Prada reference, things like that. But I think overwhelmingly, it's ballroom culture, black and brown queer culture that has really provided a nice platform for people to be able to grab their lingo and communicate with. It's a newer version of Queen's English, which is kind of what people my age would refer to as just like the stuff that all the gays and the queers were saying. I think those are the like overall obvious things, like work bitch and like, the finger wave and like there's so much about that comes from black and brown ballroom culture. And for exact examples, just, you could look at Legendary. You could look at, Paris is Burning, where they actually have a section in the movie where there's like vocabulary that teaches you all about, what the words they were saying back when they filmed it in the 80s. And that's what we're seeing on shows like RuPaul's Drag Race and even Queer as Folk now. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And that also leads into how fashion has played such a big part from the LGBTQ plus community into mainstream. And my question is, who is your ultimate fashion inspiration in the community? Who I assume you are currently wearing now. It's only audio, but I'm sure we're all dressed up and looking fabulous, and definitely not wearing pajamas. So who is your fashion icon that has had an impact on you?
Well, right now I'm wearing a shirt that says, "But Daddy, I love him." And my pants say Jesus saves. So I really feel like I am at the the fashion icon. No, I think it's dope that we're able to like access so many people and communities like instantly. Like I'm just so jealous of the kids growing up right now, like having actual kids to like look up to online to see how to dress, because when I was like 12, 13, 14, like what we had like J14 magazine, or like, you know, these Disney Channel shows where it's just like layers and scarves, you know, and whatever 40-year-old producer is like, yeah, this is what the kids are going to wear on this hit TV series, and that's what we had to look to. So I think it's really cool that kids are able to like you know, hop online and get like an actual representation. Like, I don't know, and there's kids that are like just doing their thing. Like when I was like 12, we had Kids Bop, you know. That was the kids on the cusp of entertainment. So just definitely I think like community, I think is would be my answer. Just like the community.
The community. Well, I'm also in just a tie-dye shirt, so I'm just an excellent speaker on fashion right now. But for me, the artist, rest in peace, Alexander McQueen was always someone I was always so obsessed with, and I always found him as like such a pioneer when it came to fashion. He really turned weird into mainstream, basically. And I don't know, as like a queer kid, you kind of resonate with that. You know, you take something that's a lot of people don't like see as like conventional and turn into something conventional. You know, that's what I always applauded him about.
Okay, perfect answer. Oh my god.
That was too perfect. I love that. And I am the first person to say that I am like the least fashionable person around. I'm sitting here in like my basic white, I was gonna say something I'm probably not allowed to say, but basic top with like just tiny little rainbow hearts and joggers. But I really love that the LGBT plus community has made me feel like that's okay. Like I can dress what I think is beautiful, knowing that other people find it not so very beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, because that's just me. Woohoo.
And Peppermint, I'm curious on the fashion from RuPaul's Drag Race and the way that almost the RuPaul fashion was driving some of the designing, but now designers are coming to Drag Race to try and kind of push their designs. And I'm curious, like how you've seen that evolve throughout the drag community on pushing through into mainstream culture.
I don't know that I have any designer's name or icons specifically. I guess that's a really tough question to answer, but there are some really what I'm grateful for with talking about LGBTQ community and drag race and fashion or designs is that, you know, I'm it's not so much that I work as a drag queen. It's more that I'm a 6 foot tall Black trans woman that I can't fit my body into conventional fashion. So I don't really see fashion, the industry of fashion, as something that I was ever able to like really participate in. And so, like, you know, the most mainstream designers and things that I couldn't afford and couldn't fit, I would just have to kind of skip over. And then obviously using costumes when I'm doing drag, it needs to be something that's accessible and something that's affordable. And so I was really excited and really happy to be able to work with a lot of queer designers to create looks that we thought would work and would be lovely um, for me to go to Drag Race. Delicia Goldberg is one designer who, you know, made my, I guess, infamous red and white peppermint look. Also Matthew Camp, who is known as a star, but he's also a designer and a fashion a really good designer. I think a lot of people don't know that about him. And he made a lot of my, not for Drag Race, but just in my drag life in general. And yeah, I don't know so much about the clothing styles and fashion coming through the mainstream, but definitely makeup trends. Because I remember there was a moment in time, especially when I used to work as a makeup artist at the makeup counter. The biggest of off offense was that if you look like a drag queen or a trans woman, like the cis women at the counter would be like, "Oh, I don't want to look like a drag queen. Don't give me that one." And then, fast forward 15 years after the Kardashians and whatever they're doing to their makeup, or, like whatever's happening on, and a lot of these Instagram videos, they're all, tricks, like drag makeup tricks that we're seeing on, with these makeup creators. And so that makes me feel good that drag is continuing to have an effect on the culture.
Amazing. So we've only got 15 minutes left. So just a reminder that although we're not enabled to let other people join the conversation, you can play around with the emojis to show everyone how you're vibing with the conversation. So do get involved with the emojis. So one of the final questions that we're going to ask the panel here is, which person in LGBTQ plus history do you feel has had the most impact on culture today or on you as an individual today? So who are the people that have really impacted in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights you directly? And open to anyone.
I definitely say somebody I'd want to mention is Christine Jorgensen. She was one of the first people to publicly come out as trans, and this was back in the 1950s, and it made her this instant celebrity, and everyone wanted to know about her life as a trans woman, and she just gave so much visibility and hope to other members of the trans community out there. And I just think she is somebody that was very much at the forefront of like increasing trans visibility as we know it today.
I love that, and I know that there's still so many people that we need to realize are still fighting the fight and getting a lot of like crap for their identity, but just paying refuge to all of the frontrunners and groundbreakers who really took a lot of that brunt when everyone was like completely against the whole community from the offset. Elton John, Freddie Mercury, even Alan Turing. There's this one trans woman who I particularly really respect called Caroline Cozy, who also sort of like presented as Tula, and she was a Bond girl. Her story is quite interesting because she was almost she was forced to come out by a journalist who found out after she was a Bond girl that she was trans, and there was a whole lot of backlash. But just the fact that a trans woman was this epitome of sexiness in British culture and nobody really batted an eyelid was really cool, and she just really elevated that to take trans rights to a whole new level.
I love all of these people. There's also another person people should look up as William Dorsey Swan, who was a slave in the United States, or an enslaved human in the United States, who after being freed was a clear, fabulous icon in the community and in the world when things were not, when everyone wasn't being celebrated for being queer. And would go by the name Miss Swan and throw the what they were sort of
I think you were cutting out a little bit, Peppermint.
And live their best lives, arrested and imprisoned, and petitioned the president for their release. And this was around the turn of the century, like, the 1800s, like 1890 something, I believe. And so probably one of the first, one of the oldest cases, like national or federal cases of LGBT rights, petitioning for LGBT rights, on record. And they're an amazing person. Look them up. Miss Swan with 2 N's, William Dorsey Swan.
You cut out slightly there, Peppermint, so we caught most of it, but
Oh, darn.
just remind us of the name so we
William
can.
Dorothy Swan.
Perfect. So we can go Google that
Miss
person.
Swan.
I'm learning so much from those, and I definitely want to go follow up with some of those names to educate myself for sure. So we're now on to the quick fire lightning questions. So just one word answers for this as we go through the panel. Mac, we'll start with you. Your Pride 2021 tune.
Tune as in like a song?
Yes. What anthem are you living for this Pride 2021?
Levitating by Dua Lipa. Dua Lipa, because it's playing everywhere and I'm into it.
Amazing. Miles?
Jesus from Texas by Sumler. Yeah, amazing. If you have like religious trauma, or even like they're just like a Christian artist, so they have the intersection of being religious and LGBT. But I grew up being really religious and being LGBT, and then having kind of a shift in like what my faith is to me. But it's a wild song. So if you're AFAB, you grew up religious, Jesus from Texas, anything from Sumler.
Amazing. Peppermint?
I bounce back and forth between Pride, A Deeper Love by Phyllis Nicole with Martha Wash. And, I'm sorry, yeah, it's Martha Wash. And also Alternate, Free. The song is Free by Alternate. And I love both of those anthems. Those are my Pride anthems.
Cool. Jamie?
Oh, I think I can't pick one, but it has to be anything off of Miley Cyrus's Plastic Hearts album. That's pretty much all I've listened to this summer. Yep.
Yeah, that's getting 100% emoji from me. Shaba?
No, Jamie stole mine. Bad Karma has been my anthem for sure. But if we're gonna go like down the more obvious route, we have to shout out Todrick Hall. Like, he's getting everyone into an LGBT plus mood. Pride anthem, yeah.
I also love Todrick's COVID videos throughout the summer last year, which definitely got me through Pride last year. And also a shout out to Vincent and his new album, which has multiple Pride anthems, if anyone wants to go check out Vincent. And then last big question, lightning round, favorite YouTuber LGBTQ plus creator? And you don't have to all say each other. You can go out of this group and we won't take it personally. Mac?
Well, other than Miles McKenna, I would have to say Kingsley.
Miles?
Well, other than Machiavelli, Mac does it. Queen, I already dropped the Tyler Oakley card, so I don't know if I can play that one twice. But like our Gateway Gay, that Queen really did it for me. That was it.
Gateway Gay is definitely something that I'm taking away for Tyler. Peppermint?
I'm really into ContraPoints. That might be controversial.
Yeah, no, I love that channel as well. It was super interesting. Jamie?
I have to give a shout out to Jessica Kelgrim Fazard. She makes amazing LGBTQ plus and disability content.
Love that. And Shaba?
Oh, I love that. I love everyone on this panel, everyone that everyone's mentioned. Adding on to that, Rose and Rosie, they're about to have like they're this beautiful lesbian couple that's been documenting their baby journey. It's due like any minute now, and I'm so ready for it. So yeah, Rose and Rosie. But also, I'm going to be greedy and also shout out like a TikToker, Jay Hawkridge, who is someone that I've recently found online. He's a smaller creator, but he speaks so much about being HIV, AIDS, and just the myth busting around that. It's been so incredible to hear his journey.
Amazing. And I'll just quickly say that like you can learn so much from LGBTQ plus creators online educationally, but also so many of them do great things for nonprofits and really look to create opportunities for people to donate to different organizations. So I know Mac has been a part of the YouTube Giving campaign this year, where we are supporting Albert Kennedy Trust in the UK, as well as the Trevor Project in the US. For the Trevor Project in the US, YouTube is matching up to $250,000 of viewer donations. So if you did want to donate to the Trevor Project or Albert Kennedy Trust, you can go to yt.be/AKT for Albert Kennedy Trust, or for the Trevor Project, you can donate at yt.be/Trevor. One massive thing is that with everything going virtual, a lot of organizations and nonprofits did lose out on donations that they would traditionally get during Pride Month last year in person. So definitely make sure that you are supporting local nonprofits that are supporting the LGBTQ plus community. But if you want to support the Trevor Project or Albert Kennedy Trust, then definitely get involved. And YouTube will be matching all donations up to $250,000 for the Trevor Project. So final open discussion question. What is one thing that you wish for the community within the next few years? So super open question. Anyone wants to jump in. What is one thing that you wish for the community within the coming years?
I'll say, what I wish for the community, and beyond the obvious, furthering of our equality and more joy and happiness is for us to rally behind the trans individuals and bodies and parts of the community who are still under attack, whether legislatively in the United States and beyond, and then also like in person, like physically. There's still have a major problem with the the intimate partners of Black trans women killing us. Not to bring it down, but I think it's an important thing, and that's become the focus, the through line of everything that I do, whether it's something regarding drag or something that's more focused on the community. It's really important that we destigmatize the relationship between trans individuals and their partners, so that there's less fear, especially with the cis het male partners of trans women who are violently reacting to people discovering that they're actually involved with trans women. So safety is what I wish for the community.
I think that's such an important point from Peppermint, and I completely agree. And something I would say is just seeing less attacks on trans youth in particular. We're seeing so many anti-trans bills happening in the US, and we're seeing so many things happening in the UK that are affecting access to healthcare and just general kind of well-being and healthcare of trans youth. And that's really something I'd love to see improve going forward, like massively.
I agree with you both, and I hate to get like my Asian mum vibe on, but like we have to tell off our community, because unity is definitely something that I think we need to work on. You can't call yourself a feminist unless your definition of feminism also includes trans women. You can't say that you're progressing LGBT rights unless you're also talking about POC LGBT plus people. We have to rally together more than ever before, and I've just been seeing so much divide. So come on, we got to do this.
Yes, yes. The pendulum keeps on swinging back and forth, and we might have small victories, but there is still a fight. And definitely, visibility is definitely something I do want to push, especially for trans women and trans women of color in both the media and just regular life. Start normalizing who they are, and stop villainizing them. That a lot of these politicians are doing right now.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, trans rights, LGBT rights, they are just human rights. Like, we all deserve the freedom and the space and the respect to like say what we want to say, look how we want to look, sound how we want to sound, move through the world in ways that are authentic to us. And that's just a human experience. That is not just pigeonholed to a trans identity or queer identity. Like, just do what is authentic to you, and everyone else just be real cool. Like, that's really it.
I just feel so inspired by all of you as creators. I definitely really want to reinforce the Trevor research that just one accepting adult can reduce the risk of suicide attempt from young people or young LGBTQ plus people. And just by representing and being visible helps be that person to people that you'll never meet, you'll never know, but you can really truthfully know that you are affecting people's lives in such wonderful ways. So thank you so much for all of the work that you do. To those listening, if you do want to get involved in supporting the organizations Albert Kennedy Trust, who support individuals in the UK that are at risk of homelessness, then we've put the links in the description of the spaces. So it's yt.be/AKT. and also for the Trevor Project, who support young people in crisis through online and phone crisis response. You can donate to yt.be/Trevor, where YouTube will be matching donations up to $250,000. So do feel free to get involved to support there. But once again, thank you so much to the panelists. To everyone listening, if you want to follow any of these creators, then you can click on their avatar and you can follow the links in their description and follow them and get involved with the community that they've built online. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you to the viewers for joining. And super important, Pride with a purpose. Enjoy the weekend, celebrate Pride, but know that you're doing it for a reason, and support all of the LGBTQ+ community. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend, everyone. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Thank you.
Happy Pride.
Happy
Happy
Pride.
Happy
Pride.
Pride.